Hey everybody, Jeff Davis here, and I am here with Herbie Mack. It's a great honor and pleasure. It's going to be a fantastic conversation today. We actually originally connected on LinkedIn, and both supporting one another's posts and the efforts we're doing. We're both mental health advocates. We're both active in the community. We also both do speaking, training, do lots of group work as well. I was really excited to meet Herbie here down in Tampa Bay. I'm just loving it. And it was just a lot of serendipity that connected us. I reached out to him, timing was great for both of us, and here we are. And I really am excited for you to hear his story, his insights, and all the value that he has to share with you today as we keep this very, very important conversation going as far as mental health. Herbie, it's so awesome to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, man. I'm so thankful to connect with you. As I said behind the scenes, when it comes to seeing a male talk about mental health, it's so rare. I'm just grateful to see someone that's brave enough to share their story, but not only sharing their story, but do the dirty work behind the scenes. Nobody talks about, nobody celebrates the studying, to making sure they're looking up, evidence-based stuff. Like, okay, this does work. Like, this works. The training and teaching others. So I'm thankful for that, man. I'm thankful to meet you and to connect with you on LinkedIn.
Likewise, and I actually love what you just said there as far as the dirty work. I think that's really powerful, and I know this is a fact because of all the people, and I say this completely respectfully, where I know, like, look, we all have competing priorities, and at the same time, I'm also going to be honest by saying, a lot of people want the dream and they don't do the work, so I really feel like you just hit the ball out of the park, you hit a home run there, because a lot of people are not putting in that behind-the-scenes work to have that success they desire. It sounds like you agree.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, in the beginning, I was just like, oh, no, let me share my story. And, you can share your story in so many ways. And for myself, I was just like, man, what happened if I do the education part about it? Let me get the certifications. Let me study. Let me, go on Google Scholar and look at the evidence-based stuff, so I can understand when I do teach those that this works. This actually works. I have this data to show that, hey, if you just do something simple as journaling,
yeah.
You do something simple as going outside and getting 15 minutes of sun, just walking around the block, just breaking up that pattern. And when you see it and you say it, and it's like, look, I have stuff to back me up to do that. So yeah, yeah. I don't want to nerd out, but like, I enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
It's just like, man, I want to get all the knowledge I can, so I can make sure that when I'm out speaking or just having a casual conversation with someone, that I can just say, hey, this actually works. Hey, if you just walk around the block, or if you just do my favorite thing, grounding. Do the breathing method that I just talked about the 4, 7, 8, and just slowing down the world, that can change your whole mood.
Yeah, and you have both the story and the insights, as you said, behind it. Tell me a little bit more about that breathing you were talking about here.
Yeah, so for myself, I was struggling mentally. There were certain parts where I was just like, man, I was overwhelmed.
Okay.
And coloring was my thing. And, I sit down, I color. And that was only working for so long, because my body was kind of used to it. My brain was like, oh, hey, we're coloring again, something else. And I just looked up something else, and it was a breathing method, 4, 7, 8. You inhale for 4 seconds, you hold it for 7, and then you exhale for 8 seconds. And it just, for that moment, whatever thoughts that was racing in my mind, it just slows it down, and like it's no longer there, or it's not as annoying as it used to be, or something that was like aggravating me. It's like, okay, you know what, I'm bugging out on this. I'm overthinking this. Let me do something else to help me out. So yeah, just looking at other tools to put into your toolbox, as I like to say. So just having that, like Batman.
I love it. I absolutely love it. We're already diving into great insights here. So, and I have so many more questions about that. With that said, I really would like to, let's say, to ask you next, and it's something that, one of my many burning questions for you in anticipation for our discussion here today is your story. And this is where I had seen you sharing on LinkedIn, and I was really inspired. I don't see many people go as deep as you go, and I'm talking like any gender, male or female or any other gender that makes someone be. I'm not referring to that. I'm referring to, like, as a person. I see, like, the depth and the authenticity, and I'll tell you, like, one post that really touched my heart when you talked about overcoming trauma and overcoming a dependency on alcohol. That is just so powerful that you shared, and I shared that, and it's inspiring, and it's also very brave, and I just wanted to ask you more about your story and just have you share that with us today.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm trying not to act like I'm on a stage, but but I'm about to get into like my stage story. You know, like I like to say, my signature story is goes like this. Waking up to the sound of someone banging at my door. As I open the door, I realize it's my ex-girlfriend. Trying to figure out why she's here. She's like, Herbie, why do you look like that? Why do you smell like that? Hello, are you gonna answer me? But the whole time I'm trying to decide if I should tell her the truth. Because every male told me I can't be weak, I can't be vulnerable, I have to man up. She must have known something was wrong. Then she leans in. She says, I love you, I'm here for you. So with that being said, I decided to tell her the truth. Trigger warning, this is the third day in a row I attempted suicide. And honestly, it would have been the fourth if you didn't come knocking. Instantly, she starts crying, she hands me her phone, and tells me to call the suicide prevention lifeline number. So I did. As I'm on the phone, I'm speaking to the counselor. As I'm speaking to the counselor, she says, sir, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel today? As I replied, a -10. And to be honest with you, this is the first time in my life I don't trust myself by myself. So she recommended I check myself into the behavioral health center, so I did. As I'm there, I'm getting evaluated by a couple of nurses, and one of the male nurses, I'll never forget, said, so I've been doing this for years. I don't know if you believe in God or not, but he's going to use you to share your story to save other lives.
Wow.
I had no idea what he was talking about, to be honest. Just wanted my pillow, my blanket, and cry. Because no one thinks about attempted suicide, let alone being in a place like that. So there, I finally have to see the psychiatrist who's running the facility. And he just like glances at my file and he's like, oh, you're from the Bronx, so I know people from the Bronx have a low IQ and can't really read or write that well.
Wow.
I just want to say, when people throw labels at you, tell them labels are made for jars, not people. So see, want to communicate with me nor care to, I went right back to that same male nurse. And I asked him, hey, is there anything that I can do that can empower my mental health? Because I don't trust that guy. He's like a used car salesman. He said, yeah, try journaling. And then when I was journaling, that's when I discovered I was a functional alcoholic. Here I am, being a functional alcoholic for over a decade, trying to know my pain instead of understanding my pain. And here I am, dating someone else, hoping that they can teach me how to love myself. It sounds ridiculous every time I think about it. But as I kept journaling, I realized one of the triggers of my depression was my parents for not teaching me how to love myself. And from there, I was just at a place of peace. Man, I'm hurting. Thankfully, I'm still there for another days, and a psychiatrist comes, and another one, she's like, hey, why are we not taking the prescription that we provided? You have bipolar 1. And I was like, what? So it's the first time someone told me this. And so she did her homework, she goes back and she speaks to the nurses and she looks at my file and seeing that I didn't get the proper test. So she gives me the test to see if I had bipolar 1, as it said, passed with flying colors. She's like, you don't have it, but I'm gonna release you today. At this time, I'm there for 5 days, okay? I only wasn't there for 3. And once she released me, she was like, just, Herbie, promise me you're gonna see therapy. I wasn't sure, well, yeah. Jeff, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was broke. So did what anybody else would do, go to Google and type in how to love yourself, and I discovered positive affirmations. And since I was in dire need, I decided to put sticky notes everywhere, in my bedroom, car, and all that. Then I started speaking to myself in the mirror, telling myself I'm loved, I'm smart, I can change the world if I just believe. And from there, some of my friends found out that I was having like suicidal ideation, and they wanted to cheer me up, like take me out, drinking, and I discovered something called boundaries. So, I love you, but I can't go out to drink with you, because when I do, I turn into that Incredible Hulk, and I can't control that man.
Yeah.
They didn't get it, but they respect me, so they stayed their distance.
Okay.
So some of my buddies, they was trying to cheer me up.
Yeah.
From there, me creating that boundary with them, I went back into journaling and realized that, my parents were depressed for not teaching me how to love myself due to the fact that my sister died from brain cancer at the age of 3. So they was depressed. And then I forgave myself for trying to damage my body, trying to end my life, and being a functional alcoholic because I was depressed. And that led to that ex-girlfriend of mine is becoming my wife, and now my wife. Now she's my wife, and now she blessed me with 2 amazing kids. And I just share just a part of that story, just because I personally went from hopelessness to happiness, and it's just something that I hope to inspire others to believe in themselves. You're at this rock bottom moment now, but you don't have to stay there. With the hard work and dedication, you can find that place of happiness.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That's an incredible story, and there's a lot we can take from that. There's a lot. So one of the things of many is it sounds like you mentioned the hopelessness and not getting the coping or the fundamental skills from your parents to be able to love yourself, and it sounds like that played a big role in sinking into the depression.
Yeah, it was something, at some point, obviously, my parents was good, that life-changing event, for anyone would change anybody. And when it comes to coping strategies, being in the Bronx, we didn't talk about it that much, we didn't really say anything about coping. Fortunately, one of my favorite coping strategies was basketball. So that was my way of coping when I was having a bad day or I was in a funk. I would just go out and not think about my problems and just have fun and react and, just play basketball. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, they didn't really teach me that, but being in that place, we had group sessions and they was talking about this, and so I kind of got wind of it, but having that conversation with the male nurse, right, he looked like me, so he broke it down in the sense where I got it. Hey, take a moment, you can listen to some music, listen to some Jay-Z, right?
Yeah.
Do whatever you want. And that was so you're saying I can do this, with music on and all that, and just having that icebreaker, and it helped.
Yes, yeah, that's spot on. And another thing that I absorbed, as you mentioned, someone was checking on you. You said that you had attempted suicide 3 days in a row, and it would have been your 4th if not for the person who at that moment was your ex-girlfriend, and then knocking on the door. So would you say that there's power in caring for others? So you have the end where you're struggling, and there's also power in checking in on someone to help them.
Yes. I'm going to tell you something. No one believes me. I have no idea why she came to my house that day. She didn't call me. She didn't text me. Anything. It was just a random knock.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
It was meant to be.
And I guess the universe was hey, we're going to send you some help. Someone that you will listen to. And finding that, when you have these conversations with people, and I don't like to say, yeah, you attempting suicide, because that can be offensive to someone. Oh man. But when I sit down, hey, you think about self-harm? And then what? And then I would be no, self-harm. Then I would use the suicide word in it. I don't go directly with it. But even with her, she came in, she created a safe space for me. And the ironic part about it, she got that number 3 days before she came to my house. She never heard of it. Her job told her about it, and she gave it to me. I was wow, that's good, and I'm thankful for it.
Wow. I'm absorbing it as well, and like you said, we also have to be very delicate because of everyone's situation. So everyone has their unique situation, and I know there's great literature out there as well, and case studies and examples about how we do need to approach each person, each individual for their case. And it sounds like you're really getting out there now, and this year, and you've been doing it for a while, which is great to really share your story and help other people and to impact others.
Yeah. I've been able to blessed to have opportunity to not only share my story, but do workshops, teach people hey, this is the language that we use. We don't no longer use the term of this person committed suicide. We use the term of this person died by suicide.
Exactly.
And really well, why? I'm well, one, you want to give that person's family a moment of grief. You want to treat them like a person. This is not a crime they committed. This is something that they was hurting and pain. So stop using that language. And then also, as you said, realizing that everyone is different. So if I know, man, Jeff is having a mental health episode, I'm not going to go to you and be man, you think about killing yourself? Because you may not be, that approach may not work for you. So I may sit down with you and say, hey, I know you've been in my alma mater. Hey, you think about self-harm? And you'd be like, well, what do you mean by that? Oh, are you thinking about suicide? Tone matters. Language matters too, on how you approach that person. So understanding that person and really, I guess matching their energy. And like, oh, okay, this person's at a 10, so I'm not going to be at a 10 with them. But I am going to ask them at some point, are you thinking about suicide?
Yes, language matters, like you said, tone matters, how we approach them. And you said you don't like leading with attempted suicide.
Yeah, not right away, unless I know, unless I have suspicions. I don't want to say no, but unless I have some suspicions of, self-harm, right? Like, oh man, if I see, a weapon or something like that, then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Are you thinking about suicide? Because obviously if they have a weapon there, then I'm trying to be direct. Or if they have like a knife or something like that, then I'll be more direct. But if it's just like a moment of just life is overwhelming to them, then I'm like, hey, are you thinking about self-harm? Like, no, I'm not thinking about self-harm. And then I would, at some point, ask them, are you thinking about suicide? I don't lead off with it right away. But if I don't know the person, I may lead off with it. But if I do know them, I'm just like, hey, do you think about self-harm or something like that? Just depending on the situation.
That makes a lot of sense. The self-harm is that perfect in-between phrase and word. I feel like we could talk about your story for hours, being that we're in this, right now we're in this really lovely library in this room, and being that we have other questions we'd like to ask each other. I'll say one more piece before we leave it is if you could share one from your whole story, one transformational moment. And I know there were a lot of complexities and a lot of factors, so I'm not oversimplifying here. I just mean it, if you can share one kernel or one piece of transformation for the listener from your story, what would you share?
Ooh, man. That is the toughest question I've received so far. The one moment that I would share is me talking to myself in the mirror, the self-talk. Yes, like, my wife, she played a factor to it. But she didn't do the work. Like, I still had to do the work. I still had to believe in myself. And me talking to the mirror gave me that confidence to believe in myself, that confidence to say, I want to live. Building up my confidence and being able to say, it's okay not to be okay. But guess what, Herbie, we're here. Let's figure this out together. And she was there for a little bit, but it was mostly me doing the work and being okay, but giving myself grace and just the self-talk. I don't think we do that enough, of like looking in the mirror, not just washing our face and brushing our teeth, but just actually looking at you and to say, I love myself. Like, yes, I may not be on a GQ magazine, or I may not be, in a swimsuit edition or whatever, but just really embracing you. I think sometimes we compare ourselves to others, and it's easy to do that. But once I locked in and learned how to love myself, just looking at myself in the mirror and telling myself, I'm loved, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I can't change the world if I just believe. Now look at it, now I'm actually doing it.
Powerful, very powerful. Self-talk is something all of us can work on, so thank you for sharing that insight, Herbie. So moving along here with some other questions and piggybacking off of the incredible content we've already talked about. So one thing that was just going through my mind is you and I are both mental health advocates, and there are others out there, definitely.
Yes.
And at the same time, there really, generally speaking, aren't that many of us. And it's not like some club we're in, anyone can speak up. I truly believe from like the core of my soul, we all can make an impact. We can all speak up. Whether you have a story or not, or it doesn't matter. We can all speak up. Why are there so few people, even now, as we're actually approaching the end of 2023, we're almost in 2024, it's just mind-blowing. Even now, some people will say, oh, the conversation has come so far. I'm going to share my honest opinion. It's come a little bit of the way. It's scratching the surface. We have so much farther to go as a society. Herbie, why are there so few people even now speaking up about this important topic?
One, I'm not sure if everyone's ready to share their truth. And like you and I are just feeling back, it's very challenging sharing your pain, and because you have your someone that's going to be the villain that you care about. right? Like for my story, my parents made it look like a villain. At that moment, they was going through a lot. I didn't realize that. You know, when you're a teenager, they don't keep you in the loop of like, I'm struggling mentally. So, you know, for people who may want to share their story, they may not be brave enough yet to be at peace with making said person feel, you know, because it's, you know, you get feedback, you get backlash. When I started to share my story, the backlash of the text between my family was like, hey, you're putting your mom down, you're putting your dad down, you're doing all this negative stuff to them. And it's like, no, that's my truth. This is how I felt. This is what built up.
It's your experience.
This is my experience, exactly. And I'm at peace with that. But behind the scenes, I'm at peace with, them. Like, hey, I'm sharing this. If you're not okay with it, it is what it is, and being comfortable with it. Just being able to share your story, it's as powerful for anyone. Anybody can share their mental health experience and challenges. But the back end part, I'm not sure everyone is willing to do that, willing to take on that burden, because it's a lot. And very similar to what you said, you don't necessarily have to share your story. You can literally share some posts.
Yeah.
Here goes, the famous 988. Let me share this on your feed.
Yeah.
Let me, share another resource or whatever. That goes a long way. You never have to share your story. That's just you being an advocate right there. Just, hey, I'm sharing this resource.
Love that.
Love
that. You hear that. You don't have to share your story or go, you can be an advocate by simply adding to the conversation in any way. Hey, there's a lifeline. Hey, there's a resource. I love that.
Yeah. I had a gentleman I met a couple of weeks ago at an event that I did. And he's like, man, I want to share my story just like how you did, but I'm not there mentally. I'm just not there. I'm not strong enough. And I'm like, dude, you're working with this organization. You're doing this amazing work. That's enough. You're running groups. That is enough. You don't have to, share every pain. If you're still healing, it's okay. If you don't feel like doing it, it's okay. You're doing enough. You're sharing amazing resources. Like the guy gave me probably 10 resources that day that I didn't have. So I'm like, that's enough, and that's acceptable.
Yes. And another thing coming to mind as we're talking about this, and while we're on this topic, before we go into a couple others, is why do you think I know before we hit record on the camera, we were talking about people don't get it, and that actually really touched my heart. Remember, we had this great conversation before we started talking here, sort of a pre-recording conversation, and I really got passionate, and I really experienced that. That's been actually it's also been a pain point for me as well. People misunderstanding us, where we truly are trying to help others. And I'm going to say, and I say this completely respectfully, and also from my truth. You can also call it my opinion. No one has to agree with me, but would you say that the people not getting it comes from both a lack of care and a lack of willingness to change? Could those be underneath it?
Yeah, I would say, I have to agree with you on this.
Yeah,
I would say yeah. But also, when you talk about mental health, it's not like you broke your leg. If you broke your leg, I can see it. You're wearing a cast.
Yeah.
Broke your arm, I can see it. You can wear your cast. But when it comes to mental health, we can't physically see it unless it's like something that's being shown. That's why some people don't get it. It's like, oh, you're making this up. We all have our own problems, and it's because they don't see it in that way. Like, we all have our problems. They don't have that empathy for it. Like, oh, okay, Herbie's having a bad day. And then you're like, oh, it's not a bad day. This guy missed work. He's doing all of this. Something's going on. Let me actually check in and create that space. It's just one of those like, all right, well, he's having a bad day. We're going to keep it moving. I think it just has a lot to do with the not knowing. Where I'm from in the Bronx, we didn't talk about mental health at all.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happened in the house stayed in the house. But now, like, really breaking that barrier and saying, hey, it's okay to seek help. It's okay to go get I like to say a pro, get a counselor, a therapist, or even if you need someone to support you, like a life coach or something like that, that's perfectly fine, right? Or if you want to go to support groups, that's perfectly fine. You can have that support system. So I think it's just really breaking that barrier and showing others, like, look, this thing is serious.
Yes, it's real.
It's real. It's something that's serious. And I hate to bring this up, but like I feel like COVID for those who didn't have empathy when somebody talked about mental health, they got it. Like, oh, this is what it is. You want to go outside, but you can't. Or you can't do certain things because, you know, we're on lockdown.
Yeah.
And that's how it is with someone mentally. Like, man, I can't be the best version of me because mentally my brain is on lockdown. Or mentally I'm having an episode that's not allowing me to put my best foot forward.
Yeah, that is spot on. We're definitely on the same wavelength there for sure. And one thing that's coming to mind too, you know, as we're fleshing out, you know, like you said, these underlying reasons why not everyone gets it, and how we need people to understand that a broken mind is just as real as a broken leg. I'm also curious, dealing with judgment. You mentioned coming out with your story, and especially the beginning, and it can happen at any point. And you know, now you have this incredible momentum, and I just love seeing your LinkedIn posts in my feed. You're one of my favorite people to follow, and so I just love it. I so resonate, and you mentioned like a family, and also other people didn't really understand you, and like, you know, weird accusations that don't resonate with your truth, and you know, let's say what is judgment, and I experienced a lot of that on my journey, and I'm not saying this to you know, make it about my journey. I'm saying this to help others who are dealing with judgment, because judgment prevents people from living their purpose. So to clarify, I'm laughing here because talking about people not getting it, they're like, oh, Jeff, you're so caught up in the criticism. I'm saying, like, I'm using it to also help people. So I'm curious, how could you help someone who you know, they want, you mentioned, you know, you need courage to share your story. They want to come out and change the world. They want to impact lives, and they want to be the fullest version of themselves, and yet they're so fearful of their family and their friends and their work colleagues, and they're getting judged. How would you help someone like that?
I can tell you what helped me is learning that in somebody else's story, I'm going to be the villain. Right? I'm not going to be the hero of someone else's story. There's people that I'm the hero in their story, and there's people that I'm the villain. So therefore, I don't worry about the judgment, right? Because in my story, my parents made me come off as the villains. And, you know, my family in particular was like texting me like, dude, you're making us look bad, right? And I was okay with that. I was okay with that. It's just like, you know what, like, but my pain is going to help someone.
Yes.
So if you feel like that you're the villain, that's on you. If you want to work on that, we can work on that from here on out, and that's okay. If you know, you want to meet me where I'm at, and we work on it as a group project, I guess.
Yeah.
But then also, really just being like, it is what it is. You know, I can't change my past. Those are the experiences that I experienced, but I can change my future. And being able to say, you know what, it is what it is. I'm not going to let this person judge me because their opinion doesn't matter. It's my opinion. I know that I'm doing the best that I can do and helping others. And if I have to be vulnerable and share my pain to help someone else, then I'll do that.
Let me ask you something, and it sounds like you've got it covered, and you know, I'm going to share this. There have been times in the past where it's kept me up at night, being the villain in someone else's story, and they didn't understand me, and you know, they had their own point of view, which is their right, and we're all entitled to our own perspective and opinions, and that's a human right, no matter who we are. And I realized, you know, that I saw a powerful insight that was shared, and someone said that you know, you don't have anything to prove to anyone. And you know, I realized I need to get more comfortable myself, and you know, I'm being open here as well, where, you know, okay, that person didn't get it. It's also not my job to correct their view, and I still, I feel like you just shared it, and I still fall into that trap. I still fall into that trap. I just engaged with a brutal guy, and that, you know what I learned from that? You know, the only thing I learned from that was just don't engage. You know, So it sounds like you're at peace with being the villain. You know, it doesn't eat at you. You're saying no.
So I'm not going to use a superhero analogy, but I am going to use a superhero analogy. So, like, you know, Muhammad Ali is one of my guys that I look up to.
Yeah.
And I look up to him, right, because it was like, in some people's eyes, he was a superhero. And in some people's eyes, he was the villain.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was okay with that, right? Especially when he said, like, I'm not going to war, I'm not going to Vietnam. Like, In a lot of people's eyes, he was a villain.
Yeah.
And some people's eyes, he was a hero because he stood up for what he believed in. That's how I was like, man, that's the confidence I need to have. And that's how the mindset that, like, you know, reading his story, reading his books, and I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. It doesn't matter what anybody else says about me or think about me. It just matters how I feel about myself. And having that confidence, like, oh, well, I'm the bad guy in your story, I'm the bad guy. It's okay. I'm not gonna try to win you over. You know what I mean? If I'm the good guy in your story, I'm the good guy. Cool. Like I know who I am at my core, being okay with that.
Mm. Wow. Is there a belief? Well, what would you say is the core belief underneath that? What the belief, and I'm thinking along with you here, is you're worthy you're fully worthy as a person, or you're enough, regardless of what that person thinks. Whether they think of you as the best thing since sliced bread, or whether they think of you as the worst thing ever. You are enough. And you are worthy, and that's the core belief you have in your heart and soul.
Yeah, that conversation in the mirror helped me believe that I am enough. Dude, very similar to you. I was up at night, like, worried about, like, what this person says, and I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
Why? I am enough. Like, I attempted to take my life, and I'm here. And I'm still here. So therefore, I'm enough.
Yeah.
I'm worthy. I proved that, like, you know, talking to myself in the mirror, that if I believe in myself, that I am enough. And that's it. Like, I'm just, don't even worry about it. Sometimes I used to, like, occasionally, I'm like, oh, I worry what my wife thinks.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, no, for the most part, I don't care what Joe Smoke thinks or what anybody in my family thinks, I'm enough. And I just keep that momentum going. Horse with blindness.
You know that so thoroughly through your heart and soul. Let me ask you, what would you share? What would you share with someone who right now they came to you and they're suicidal, and then they're completely hopeless? What would you share with that person?
Ooh. I would share with them. Man, now you put it on the spot. I would share with them, 988. Obviously,
yes.
Give that to them.
Resource.
I'll give them a resource, but I would actually have a conversation with them and let them know, like, look, you are worthy. Whatever experience or trauma that you've been through, that is just a chapter in your life. That's not your book. So just let that moment be that moment. You have the ability to change the narrative of your book. And it's not easy. It's hard work, but your life is worth it.
Love it. That's similar to what I would share as well. So, let me ask you, we can go back and forth here in our remaining time. This has been an incredible discussion. I feel hopefully this is the start of many
yes.
conversations, because there are so many directions we can go on this. I mean, even your first piece we could talk about your story for hours. And I'm curious if you have a question you'd like to ask me as well while we're here. Yeah.
What is the best advice that you receive about your mental health?
I like how we're both asking ourselves a great question. What the best advice I've received from someone else about my mental health? I would say that it's a process and it's a daily practice. And what I feel like a lot of our society and I'm speaking generally here, I'm not calling out anyone. We fall into the trap of thinking like it's a one and done. Like, okay, that's done. Tuck it away, all set. It's not. It's actually a daily practice, and I'm an advocate myself, and I'm also still caring for myself daily, and also recognizing when am I overwhelmed, when am I taking on too much, and stepping away, and going for those walks in the sunshine, and using those resources, calling friends and colleagues, and anything else. So I would say understanding that it's a practice, it's a process. It's not about getting to the end destination. It's more so about engaging in that process and making it a daily routine, and optimizing, monitoring, enhancing your mental health as much as you can. That was really, really good insight from someone else.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's a marathon, not a race.
Yeah.
It's something that you just have to just keep on doing every day. Well, I don't even want to say that. It's more of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hey, every day I'm going to make sure I get some fresh air. I'm going to do, journaling in some sort of way, or I'm going to, as you said, check in with my support team. Hey, this and that. And I found it so beneficial to being direct with my support team. Like, hey, if this is a day where I need to vent, like, hey, I want to vent, no feedback, please. You know, I don't want no advice, but more than hey, I need some advice and so on. So yeah, great answer. I love it.
Yeah, and another thing I learned, like from my own journey, from my own experience, and this ties to what I'm saying is because it ties back to what we talked about, is that your self-worth is infinite. It does not depend on external circumstances. That was the one key insight I learned from my journey, and I'm sharing that because it came up into my mind, my heart, my soul as you're talking, where you talk about that core belief that you're worthy regardless of what someone says, you know, how they perceive you, you're still completely worthy, and knowing your self-worth is infinite, that's the confidence it takes to be, like you mentioned the example of Muhammad Ali and others like him who you know, really putting themselves out there. I thought that was a great connection there between our own experiences.
Yes, that's what helped me out. It's just like really looking at that, you know, when he was growing up, it was such a difficult time, and I hate to use the word difficult, but it was, and he was still able to have that confidence and realize like he was worthy. You know, he spoke his greatness into existence.
He did.
And not only did he spoke into existence, he lived it. You know what I mean? So it's just like, that's what I wanted, and that's why I was like, okay, well, in order to be great, I have to realize that I am worthy and I am great. You know, no matter what, if I have a bad day or a bad experience, as I like to call it, I'm still, you know, the greatest of all times in my mind, right? Because I'm worthy, because I went through hell, and now look at me now, I'm like, yo, this is just a little bump in the road.
I love that. Dude, well, you feel I'm gonna take a risk here because I'm really interested in this. Do you and again, if you don't want to answer, you can also say like I don't want to, because I'm really going into like our psyches as advocates, and well, I view you as great too, and I know we both like this content. I'll ask us in the back of your mind.
Okay.
Do you think of yourself as the greatest of all time, or at least in that conversation?
In my mind, I am.
Love it. Love it.